Welcome to the LifePro podcast, where today I have the pleasure of having Kelly Fabiano, who is a death doula. And our topic today is what can we learn about death? But before we get into that topic, Kelly, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. I'm excited to talk about this topic, even though it's not anything that people like to talk about. I think people like to shove this topic under the carpet, but I think there's a lot we can learn about death. And before we get into that, my first question to you is tell us a little bit more about your journey, obviously what you're doing now.
Before I became a death doula, I worked in production finance for over a decade. And really, this shift was brought about by COVID. We were quarantined and I was working remotely. And as much as I loved the people that I worked for and with, I wasn't really fulfilled in that career. And I didn't even know death doulas existed until quarantine. And then my husband had mentioned that a friend of his graduated from this program and was a death doula. And when he told me what it was that they did, it was like I was cracked wide open. There was no turning back. Um, I think, I am a very type A personality. The production finance career fit very well with the kind of box I put myself in. But when I knew that this was a line of work that was available, it really felt like it was something that I was meant to do my entire life. And so I left the 9 to 5 and the 401k, and
Mm.
here I am.
Well, so explain first before we get into why you picked it.
Mhm.
Explain to people what a death doula is. What do you do?
So the, I guess, umbrella term is a death doula is someone that provides non-medical, that's really important, non-medical holistic support to both the person that is dying and their care community, who are often their family members.
Right. So you're offering emotional support and preparing them for
It's
death.
any kind of non-medical support you can imagine, from
Uh,
emotional support, creating a ritual or ceremony. I take my clients through a good death exercise. So when they found out that they are dying and that their time is limited, we go through this document that covers all of the experiences they want to have, not just the logistics of where's the will, where are your passwords, do you have a trust, but the where do you want to be when you die? Who do you want there? Who don't you want there? So that's something. Legacy support. So I've supported someone in creating their autobiography
mm,
and also a documentary. So
wow.
it's everything, and it's sitting with the person to give loved ones a break, because we all need respite, especially when we're caring for our loved ones.
Yeah,
It takes such a physical and emotional toll.
I would imagine. I mean, I respect what you do. I could never do that. I mean, I would imagine a lot of people want to stay away from that and don't want to face the reality of the situation.
Mhm.
So you must have some thick skin to be able to handle this. What are some of the challenges you face with your clients?
Mm. Well, I have incredibly thin skin. So I am very, very empathetic, and I'm highly sensitive. So I think that it's just, for me, it's this balance of, it's such an honor to be able to provide that support, and it feels like such a sacred time. It is, in my opinion, the most sacred time of our lives.
Yeah,
So to be able to be in that space with someone is, I can't possibly describe what an honor it is. And that outweighs the uncomfortableness, that's not a word, or any of the, it's heavy, but it's also the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
yeah.
I feel like I didn't answer the second question. What? What was
Well, I mean, what are some of the challenges?
mm,
I think I would come home crying every night, to be honest with you.
uh, and I do. Not every night, but I think the challenge for me is that I fall, and as corny as this sounds, I fall madly in love with all of my clients.
Yep.
And when they die, it is devastating. And
Yep.
so I am not immune to the grieving process, even though they weren't my loved one. It I think because we share such an intimate space together, it makes us fast friends. And it's really hard to let people
Yep.
go. I don't think that ever
Right.
gets easier. At least
Yeah.
not, I mean, I'm only a couple of years and some change in, but it hasn't gotten easier thus far.
Yeah, I bet. And you know, the older that we get, the closer we get to our, you know, to death. And we have to, you know, people around us, our loved ones, our parents, leave us, and we have to grasp the reality of the situation. But you
Mhm.
know what I think we want to achieve here, or where I know we want to achieve is here, is what can we learn from our death? You know, we have
Mhm.
only so much time in this world. We don't know how long it is. Most of us don't know. Um, what can we learn? What can we learn from death?
Well, what I've learned so far is that there is a lot of room for love and levity and joy. Um, there is a lot of room for hope in humanity. I've seen people step up for their loved ones in ways that you can't even imagine. Um, I've had a couple clients who were completely at peace with the fact that they were dying. They had lived such a full life that they felt okay leaving the life they had.
Yeah,
And that blew me away because I don't know that that's the case for most of us. I think we're always clinging to just one more day, one more hour, one more, and I've had the pleasure of supporting two people now who have said to me, "Listen, I've lived a full
yeah,
life. I love how I've showed up. I've I've gotten to do everything I wanted to, and I'm ready." And it's
right,
like, wow. Um, Another thing I think we can learn is that facing it, accepting our mortality really allows us to live a fuller and more authentic life. So for me, who perceivably has many years left of life, who knows, right? But um the odds are kind of in my favor at this point. Um I I found that being able to face the fact that I can die any day, that I'm not promised anything. Again, I do think that that sounds cheesy, but it is what's true. Like, we are not promised anything beyond the next breath we take.
yeah,
And accepting that instead of ignoring it, instead of pretending like it's not happening, has allowed me to make the most of the time I have now. It inspired me to leave my career. That was really difficult because I'm the 5, 10, 15-year plan girl. Um, but I knew that I couldn't half live my life anymore.
yeah,
And so I think that really accepting our mortality while we're perceivably healthy and young and have a long life to live can only help us in the long run to live a full life, one that we feel ready to die from.
right. I completely agree. I mean, if we grasp our mortality, like you said, I've had friends and colleagues that have lost the battle to cancer or had sudden heart attacks at a young age. You know, I've kind of had to see certain things, and we forget. I think we forget about we forget about our mortality, and we let small things just bother us and drain us. And I think that's really like the advice that I want to give our listeners is, hey, you know, whatever situation you're battling on your day to day, you know, you'll get through it. It's as long as
Mhm.
you have your health, as long as you're able to love and appreciate every moment of every day and make the most of every day, then you know, you have hope, and you're lucky. You have all the wealth in the world. It's not about
Mhm.
how much money you have. Our number one commodity is our health.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So how do we, any advice for, you know, further to this point, for people listening on how to shift their mentality, how to shift their perspective on life, and how to not let, you know, the worries of day-to-day problems, whether it be little children, work problems, how do we advise them to make the changes they need to? Any
Mm,
any
so
ideas?
on a death doula level, I think that that it really is about taking the steps to really accepting that our time is limited. Um and from the logistics, you know, maybe taking care of getting that will in place. Having a trust if that's what, you know, suits
Mhm.
your financial situation. Um and knowing what your disposition wishes are. You know, do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want a green burial? Do you Making those choices can take kind of a little bit of the edge off.
Right.
And I feel like it gave me some peace of mind to complete those documents and know, okay, that's taken care of. My wishes are known. And then, you know, so I have a good death plan on my website. It's a free offering. I encourage people to download that and fill it out. Get comfortable.
Mhm.
I encourage clients to get cozy with it. Get some tea or coffee or wine, whatever beverage of choice, and make yourself comfortable and really delve into what you want to experience at end of life.
Right.
And then on a outside of that, I would say um, get to know yourself, you know, every day. Spend some time stretching, you know, beyond your level of comfort just a little bit. And do the things that bring you joy every day. Do something. It can be
Yeah.
small, um, but really, and really come to terms with and discover what it is that makes you you. What are your core values? What is the like trunk of your being? Um and honoring that and feeding that, you know, feed your soul
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah. And you talked
But
about living a full life, right? Some of the people
mhm.
that you've dealt with that are at peace with leaving this earth, um, have done the things that they wanted to do. So, you know,
Yeah.
not wasting time on moving
Yeah.
forward on your hopes and dreams and desires, and making sure that you're in a good place physically, emotionally, and, you know, and cherishing the time with your loved ones. And I think a lot of people do that. They work really hard in their
Mhm.
youth to provide for their kids and their future, and they forget that they need that balance in life. They need to be able to spend that time, that quality time with their loved ones that they can't get back, really, you know. So I
Right.
think that's important to understand. Um, you know, as we talked about, I unexpectedly lost my mom 4 years ago. She
Mhm.
went into surgery. You know, she's always kind of battling heart issues, but we weren't expecting, you know, she was going to elective surgery and she never came back. And you know, obviously that's been tough on me and really changed my perspective on life. And, you know, a lot of the reason why I'm doing this podcast is to, you know, honor her and also give everybody the platform to learn and have a better life, because we don't know what the future has in store for me. But one
Mhm.
question that always was like, you know, in the back of my mind, and has been kind of a debate for me, is what are the advantages of knowing that you're going to die versus suddenly passing? Do you have any perspective on? I know we don't have any control over it, but can you give us a little bit of insight on that perspective, like knowing you're going to die versus
Mm.
suddenly
The
passing?
advantages. The advantage is for the person that's dying or the loved ones?
Well, let's talk about both.
Okay. Um, well, unfortunately, from the vantage point of sudden death, I can't speak much on behalf of the people that die because I don't know. Um, I don't know if they would have preferred that. I do know that one of the clients I had for the longest amount of time, he had been slowly dying
Yeah,
for over 10 years.
yeah,
And so there was so much anticipatory grief for him. He was a very active man, and so he lost the ability to walk and to move around. Um, and that was really hard for him.
yeah,
Um, and so there were many little deaths during that period of time. That was very, very hard for him, and it was hard for his family as well. Which is part of, my father had a very similar end of life as this gentleman, and that's a huge part of why I do what I do. Because as you were saying earlier, my dad worked his entire life from 11 and a half. He delivered newspapers all throughout his life. He worked he worked 40 plus hours. And he only retired because he got cancer and he
mm,
had to go through radiation and he could no longer do what he did. Um, and then he died. And I just it it really, really it kills me, no pun intended, that he was someone that worked so hard and that deserved this like beautiful retirement and to go on all of the adventures and do all of the things that he put off for when retirement came, and it just never happened.
right.
um Sorry, I went off on a tangent there. So I think I don't know that one's better than the other, but they're very different.
I
Long
I think
story long.
I think it comes down to suffering, right? If you're suffering for
Mm,
a long time, that's not a good thing. So yes, maybe you want some time to be able to say the unsaid, have that time to have some closure, but there's a fine line between, having to suffer for many years and making the little ones around you suffer. Um,
mhm,
and I think with the sudden passing where I had to kind of deal with, uh, I don't know if I had that closure. I don't know if I ever got that closure. And, it maybe took me longer to cope with it. And, the grieving process, it evolves through, through the years. And I think as if when you lose a parent, especially a mother, as a son, I think that you're always going to be grieving to a certain extent. Like,
mhm,
so it becomes a part, that grief just becomes a part of you, and it changes you, and it changes your perspective on life to a
mhm.
point like, hey, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to sweat these things. I don't want to sweat the little things, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. you know, we can
I
make
just
all the money in the world. We don't take it with us.
no, no. I mean, I guess you could physically take it with you. But I mean, I find your journey so inspiring. I think that, and I hope that you give yourself credit for that, that
Yeah.
you took a devastating situation, devastating life event, and
Yeah.
through your grief, you created this beautiful outlet.
Right.
Um, and I agree with you. I don't think that I'm ever going to I don't know that I'll ever have closure with my dad's death, and that
Right.
was
Yeah.
years and years in the making.
Right.
There's always something I wish I had said or done, right?
Right. Right.
But grief, I feel like it just becomes a companion and you just learn to either
Right.
do something with it, or you can try and push it aside, and you're taking this great grief and you're creating something beautiful with it, and it's
Right.
just really inspiring.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. I mean, that, like you said, that's all we can do. You realize that, like, whatever emotions you feel, you want it to help build you up, not break you down. And
Mhm.
I would imagine that's how you deal with your clients, right? Like use this inevitable experience that we all have to go through as, hey, we all have to go through it at some point. This is just
Mhm.
your time and we need to deal with it. There's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing we
Yeah.
can change. This is what we were destined for.
Yeah. Can I share one memory I have of
Please,
my
please,
okay.
please do.
So this is the same client that I worked with for the longest period of time. And when he died, um, right after the mortuary came and took him, his daughter and son-in-law had asked what was left to do. Did they do everything he wanted? And I looked at the wishes that we had gone over, and they had honored as a family each and everything he asked for.
Mm.
And that just it brought tears to my eyes. And um I hope I never forget that moment when you get to look at the family and say, you did everything he wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gave him everything he wanted, every single thing.
Yeah.
I just, what a gift. Like
Absolutely.
yeah, anyway.
I mean, that's all we can do for our loved ones, is to be able to honor
Mhm,
them and respect them and give them all the love that we can, and give them
yeah.
everything that we can, and
Mhm,
hope that the same happens for us, when it's our time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep.
So, you know, this is another question that I have, and given your experience, I feel like after a certain age, the quality of life drops. And I don't think anybody wants to live forever, unless they're super healthy. Is there, it's probably a weird question. Is there an optimal age to live? Like, does that ever cross your mind? Like, hey, I want to live to 100 and I'm good after that.
I mean, I ask myself that, I think for myself, if I'm healthy and can move around and I'm not in pain, I'd love to live till I'm maybe in my 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't think anything I don't want to live forever. This world, it can be a painful place.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to do this eternally. But I don't I don't think there's so for instance, my grandparents, they died in their late 60s, early 70s. So fairly young.
Yeah.
Whereas my husband's, he has two grandparents still living at 86 and I think 88, and they are living their
That's
retirement dreams. They're
yeah.
loving it. They're both
Yeah.
very active, moving around, enjoying life, being social. So I think it really depends on where you stand physically, emotionally,
Yeah.
at where your health is.
Right.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
we
I
got.
don't
I think we got to maintain. Like I play basketball with a bunch of guys. We play with a guy that's 71, I think now, and he's moving around the basketball court healthy, and it's because he's continued to keep himself in
Mhm.
shape, and he's keep himself young. A lot of it is, it's headspace. It's your mind. If your mind is sharp, like, you can keep your body sharp and do all the things necessary, and obviously health and exercise, eating and exercise, and going to the doctor and doing all the things necessary to keep yourself going. And we talked about our loved ones. Like, we need to help keep ourselves sharp for them, right? We need to be able to be
Mhm.
to I think dying is toughest on the people around us. I think dying is easy for the person, because once you die, that's it. Everybody else is here to feel the pain, but you're gone. You're in peace. I mean, that's my
Mhm.
perspective. That's my perspective on things.
Yeah. When after they die, it's easier on them than
After,
yeah.
yeah,
I
leading
that
leading
would
up, it's tough.
Yeah, it can be, at least from what I've observed, it can be a really, really scary time for the person that's dying. But then, yeah, then they're gone, and the
Yeah.
people that love them are left, to pick up the pieces and
Yeah. Well,
go
what
on
do you,
without them.
so you mentioned being scared. What do you do to help them calm down and grasp? Is there a process that you go through to help them?
That's one of my favorite things, is being a space for and a kind of, I guess, not stranger, but someone that doesn't come with history and baggage with them.
Yeah.
So they can tell me, I'm pissed, I'm scared, I'm angry, I'm ready. Just I wish it would happen right now. Um, just anything that they're feeling. It's an honor to be able to hold space for that for them and know that they have an outlet. They don't have to keep it with them.
Right.
That was another reason why I do what I do, because when my dad was dying, nobody talked about it. He didn't talk about it. Um, and you could tell that he was terrified and he had no one to share that with.
Right.
And he just didn't, we weren't the right people to share it with. He didn't feel safe sharing that with us. And I get that. But I want people to feel like they can express how they're feeling when they're dying.
Yeah.
That has to be such a heavy weight to hold all on your own.
Yeah. I would imagine they don't want to push that burden on their loved ones and they keep
Right.
it inside. So you give them that platform, you give them that connection and that comfort level where they can speak about their emotions and just let it out.
Hmm.
Because that's all we can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That it really is. So I really commend you for what you do. I know it's hard. I know that there's reasons why you're doing what you're doing, and it's your calling in life. And I hope that we people listening listen to their intuition and follow their hopes and dreams and their callings and grasp their mortality to help them live a better life. And that's the whole concept of the LifePro podcast is, life doesn't come with a manual. Life doesn't always come with like instructions or we don't know what our end is going to be like. We don't know what our journey is going to be like. There's things that are not under our control that we need to just understand the universe has a plan for us and make the most out of each day. That being said, one thing I ask everybody is, what is one thing you want to teach the world? Does not have to be related to the topic. Do you have anything that you like to, teach your loved ones or your clients or the people around you?
That I want to teach or that I've learned. Because I
E-
have a
Either way,
learned.
either way is
Okay.
fine. Let's go with learned.
I have learned that humanity can be so incredibly beautiful. Like we can do some really amazing things. Um, I've been amazed at watching how loved ones have showed up for
Yeah,
their person that's dying. And it's I mean, just
yeah,
it's life altering.
yeah.
Yeah.
I,
So he
I
yeah.
guess what all that comes down to is the only thing we really need in life is love, and everything will
Hmm.
will sprout from that, will grow from that. Whether
Yeah.
it's a career or loved ones, or that's probably the most powerful thing we could ever have for somebody is love.
Hmm. I
So I
agree.
appreciate it. Is there a book that you loved that might have changed your life?
So and I'm gonna butcher the name because I'm saying this on a podcast. So it's a short story actually, and it's by Toni Morrison, and it's called Recitative.
Mm,
Recitative. Um,
it's a
I wish I
it's a
had it with me so I could show you. I'm
it's a
totally messing up the name.
it's all good.
Um,
It's a
but it's
complicated.
it's before there was the gold and white dress and black and blue, the dress where you're like, which do
Yeah.
you see?
Yep.
Have you ever read that short story by
No, I
okay.
haven't, but I will.
It's incredible. And it challenges your perception, your biases, all of the like your it's a short story about two best friends. One is black, one is white.
Hmm.
You don't know which one is which. And you notice as you're reading that you're assigning a skin color to the person and they're switching. You're like, wait, what I thought, and it makes you face your own
Yeah.
bias. And it's definitely reminded me of that
Yeah.
dress where people are seeing
Yeah.
what they can and they can't see the other way.
Right.
That was, I recommend that to anyone. It's a
Yeah.
ride. You're definitely in for a ride.
And it relates to our topic, right? Like death could be very bad or very good, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if we capture, if we can able to look at it in the beauty of death, that it helps us live a better life, and also understand that, like, that's it's part of our journey and the beauty in like living this. So we can't live forever, so let's make the most out of
Mm-hmm.
life. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
perspective is everything,
It
you know.
it definitely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can people follow you, get in touch? I think you mentioned your website. Why don't you plug some of that?
Okay. So my website is lifeanddeathwithkelly.com. I'm a life coach and a death doula. So that's the life and death. And then if you're looking for pure, positive, death positive content, I'm on Instagram under Till Death Doula Parts.
Awesome.
So you can find me there.
Well, I had a lot of fun talking to you, and you gave me a lot of perspective on life and death. Really was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun talking to you today.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me.
Again, continue doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing work, and I'm sure your clients are very lucky to have you.
Thank you. You're doing amazing work as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I remind everybody to like, follow, and share. Help us spread the word. Take care, Kelly.
Bye.